Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. You can also submit your own stories to the podcast by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's stories, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Pool of Cheddar. Boss was reluctant to do anything about Deadweight Coworker because he wasn't making obvious mistakes. We decided to make it obvious. We had this coworker on our team. The best way to describe him is to use a Homer Simpson line, "Everyone says they have to work a lot harder when I'm around." Projects given to him usually were not completed correctly, not entirely completed, or not even worked on at all. He violated security protocols, gave out equipment to other departments, and would occasionally disappear for hours. He would always have someone else to blame for his problems, contractors, staff in other departments, but the last straw for the rest of us was when he tried to throw his own team under the bus. We all knew he was skating by because we'd fix his mistakes to keep everything else running. And admittedly, it's hard to get fired from a state job. But after blaming us and having to hear about it, that was the last straw. So the rest of us on the team stopped helping him, and we stopped fixing his mistakes. He wasn't making obvious mistakes before, now they were obvious. The mistakes were piling up, and fast. We would collaborate with him only down to the bare minimum. He had no reason to blame us if our contributions to a project were completed and his weren't. And then came the kiss of death. He took a week off. With him not around, everything that piled up started getting completed by the rest of us. New tasks were completed on top of that and on time. Even my boss could not ignore the simple fact that the place ran smoother without him around. After he returned, everything started piling back up again. So we came into work a couple weeks ago, and it was announced that he had left the organization. Not one person was surprised. The thing that amazes me about this whole thing is that nobody coordinated it. None of us hatched a plan. We all just individually decided that enough was enough. You wanted obvious? You got it. It's impressive how much it takes to get fired for some people. My last 2 jobs both featured a teammate who essentially collected a paycheck and did nothing in return. At least my manager here had the balls to do what was needed. It's also amazing that in the end, there's less work to do with him gone, because tasks don't need to be done twice anymore. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Real Ultimate Papo. It says, "Fighting no effort with no effort. Bold, but it's paid off. Nothing like shedding dead weight to make you feel lighter." Another commenter called La Flibust said, "If there's a fire, it's useless throwing yourself to the ground to roll on it and put it out. Management will do nothing because you made the fire unnoticeable. You'll have burned yourself, and the fire will just keep going indefinitely. Just let the fire be. Management will be bound to see the smoke and damage eventually, and assess it for the crisis it is. And then they'll do something definitive about it. Will your organization or its mission be harmed by this? Yeah, but what do you care? Better it than you." I've definitely been in situations like this where people just don't carry their own weight at work. And the best thing to do is just let them do it, because eventually the boss is going to notice and the trash is going to take itself out. These people's indifference and incompetence will usually lead to their destruction. It's only a matter of time. Never cover for somebody like this, unless you're sleeping with them. Then that's a different story. This story comes to us from Sigback. "I do love following them company policies. I have learned so much from this subreddit, and now I'm putting it all to use. I hope this is the right subreddit for this. So it's my birthday month, and while some stores offer their Fidelity members and people with club cards certain items, like the garden store let me pick out a little potted plant, perfume store gave me a free little travel-size perfume, etc., some stores only do a discount code, and only if you make a purchase. which is wild to me. I'm in France, and normally it's just a small free item, no obligation. No strings at all, just come into the store and pick it out. For example, I ordered some wooden advent calendars for my kiddo to make while on the upcoming school break, and after I place the order, suddenly I get a birthday €5 off my next purchase when I spend €20 email. No problem, I had set my delivery for pickup in store, so I just returned and rebought the items with the €5 gift. Perfect. Thanks Reddit for the idea, by the way. But the malicious part comes from the tax store. I get a gift card there and actually have had my eye on some things for my horse, so I went in and saw that I have a 20% coupon on all items, but only starting next week. It's store-wide. So I see the items I had wanted in the color I want, and there is only one of each item left. I ask if they will restock or can order me some if they happen to sell out before the sale. This is common. They can order anything from their catalog, so it's not rude to ask. Cashier says no. Okay. I ask if they can put items aside or if I can call in advance to see if it's stocked. No. This is so weird to me. I'm thinking I have slighted this person because normally the sales representatives have no problem holding items for 24 hours. But she states company policy and says she won't do it. Okay, I can respect that. So I ask about their returns and how long I have to return an item and what conditions. 30 days? Super. I bought the items, and next week when my voucher becomes valid, I'll be able to return, then rebuy them. She actually smiled when she understood. We are both respecting company policy, and it's my perfect way to ensure the items are stocked. Plus, now she can legitimately order more for her location. Ah, compliance. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Beer Belly Be Gone. It says, sometimes they want you to maliciously comply because they legitimately don't have any other way to help you. OP responded to this one and said, oh, absolutely, and I can understand. I get the feeling company policy has been pushed here recently. Okay, this story was really weird to me. I'm in Canada, and I don't have a birthday month. I have a birthday on a certain day of a certain month, and that's when we celebrate it. But even though I have a birthday on a certain day of a certain month, I'm not expecting retail locations to give me anything for free. So I don't know if that's something from a specific country or specific area of the world, but that really hit me by surprise. It also made OP kinda sound a little entitled, but maybe that's just my opinion. So the compliance in this story was great. It was both from OP and the worker themselves, but I need you guys to comment if you're listening on YouTube and let me know if OP sounds entitled to you too. This story comes to us from KQ Helly. Tell me to call the emergency doctor for a phone order instead of recharting? Okay. I'm a clinical nurse in physical rehabilitation in Australia. I will never forget a lot of our residents, junior doctors, for being brilliant. But one resident I will never forget because he was awful. One fateful Thursday, I overheard him complaining to the consultant and registrar. It's boring here, there's nothing to do. I know it's not the most high energy place to be, and it's definitely not for everyone, but I thought that was a little rude and snide to say the least. This same doctor, only a day or two later, was asked to rechart an as-needed pain order for a patient who was having a lot of pain for acute gout. We had already had to contact the emergency department medical registrar, we call them the EdMedReg for short, overnight the night before for a phone order for her pain relief, as there were no spaces left on her as-needed order and, at the time, we did not have a doctor on call overnight at the campus I work at. Instead of recharting the order, the resident, who, remember, was apparently so bored and had so little to do that he complained both to the registrar and the consultant about it, instead chose to write a sticky note telling the nurses to just call the EdMedReg for a phone order if she has pain overnight, and stuck it on top of the patient's previous as-needed pain relief order. It would have taken him less time to rewrite the order. Not to mention, as if the EdMedReg doesn't have enough work to do in the literal emergency department. Seeing that note as the night duty nurse on charge and remembering that snide little remark of his made my blood boil, but it was, of course, nighttime and long past the resident's knockoff time. So when the poor patient inevitably had pain overnight, I had no choice but to call. The EdMed Reg just so happened to be the same doctor as the night before, and, rightfully, was a little confused and slightly annoyed we were calling for the same phone order 2 nights in a row, when surely the treating team should have written a new order during the day. He asked whether we had asked them to do so, and I told him about the sticky note and even read it to him. I remember a beat of silence on the other end of the phone before he said, "Right," before giving me the phone order. I thanked him, apologized for having to disturb him, and went to help my patient. When I came on the next night, lo and behold, the resident had written up a new as-needed order. In fact, we never saw a sticky note like that again, and as-needed orders were rewritten in a timely manner. I don't know if that doctor ever got spoken to about his smug little sticky note, but I like to think he got a good talking to. Just because my patients aren't in ICU or emergency department doesn't make them and their health unimportant. They're still in hospital and deserve proper inpatient health care. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Puzzleheaded Goal 8234. It says, "Oh, to be a fly on the wall for the conversation between the EdMed Reg and the resident. I am very confident that it was had and didn't end well for the resident." OP responded and said, "Right," and then to hear the follow-on conversation he'd have with the consultant, a man very passionate about helping our patients achieve good outcomes. I don't imagine that one went much better. Another commenter down below called Sidekick said, "Oh, he got spoken to for sure. The fact that it was never an issue again shows just how forceful the talking to was." OP responded to this one and said, "I hope he went on to learn from it and become a better doctor. It was just bizarre he wrote a note instead of recharting it in the first place. It really would have taken less time to just rechart the pain relief." One more comment down below comes from Marcia Mallowfluff. It says, "My husband is a retired physician. He always said to treat your nurses well. They can make your life really difficult or much easier." Does it sound to anybody else like this doctor was just being incredibly lazy? They're complaining about not having enough work, but then when the work comes around, they just don't want to do it? It doesn't really make sense. Is this somebody that you want trying to fix your body? Let's think about that for a second. This reminds me of a saying that does really put things into perspective in a case like this. It's, what do you call the doctor that graduated lowest in their class? Well, you call them a doctor. This story comes to us from Vampire Wolf. HR doesn't like me. Way back in winter 2006-2007, a classmate got a promotion at work. So a dozen or so of us night shift production folk went out to celebrate that Thursday, payday. This included 2 of his supervisors that we got along with. Important for later. Of course, with most of us being in our early 20s, we drank until the bar closed, then split off to keep drinking. 5 of us went to his place, 3 of us being classmates. Number 4 was a fellow tech from my line, number 5 was a production tester from his line. My classmates were getting a hands-on with number 5, so I drove number 4 home somewhere around 5 a.m. That Sunday, I made a comment to classmate number 2 that usually you take them to supper first while I was on that line. It was overheard by a couple of the people that had joined us. The comment was the only one I made, also important for later. Couple weeks go by and I get sent by my line manager to go see HR in the middle of my shift. It was a semi-expected meeting based on what I had heard around there. I spent close to an hour getting grilled and told HR exactly what I saw and said, as well as mentioned his supervisors that were there. Found out 2 things. Folks had been spreading rumors for 2 weeks and she was underage at the bar. Essentially, folks were calling her a very active lady of the evening. HR required me to send an apology email out because they figured out I was the source. Oh boy, did I send an email out. I CC'd the entire effing company, stating what I saw and that I was only apologizing for my original comment that usually you buy them supper first, but not for what had snowballed into as I hadn't even said it more than once. Also stated that her own supervisors should have known she was underage. Funny enough, HR sent out an email the next day telling people to not spread rumors. She left a week or so later. I was promoted in July 2007, and there was still no mention of that email or event when I was promoted again in 2009, and again in 2010. My exit interview also made no mention of it in 2010. HR never did have another meeting with me, even though I know there were other complaints about me. Almost like they didn't want another company-wide email going out. Alright, before anybody gets their undies in a knot, I want to clarify, OP said that this person was 18 years old and 19 is the drinking age where they are. So they were underage for drinking in the bar, but they were over the age of consent. Just making sure that's clear. Alright, there's a comment chain here I want to get into. The first one comes from a user called Coco Peely. It says, sure, it was malicious compliance to put HR on notice with the company-wide email after what sounds like a weak investigation. But is anyone else feeling bad for the underage, assumed under drinking age person number 5 for being the subject of much discussion and then having their personal life discussed in a company-wide email? Another commenter called Dark and Edgy said, yeah, not gonna lie, OP mentioning that other complaints about him not going anywhere just makes this workplace sound toxic as F. Well, OP responded to these and said, whole pile of nepotism around there with a sprinkling of cronyism. If you weren't good at your job, you better know someone or something. I'm just the guy who tries to be the subject matter expert on my specialty and try to know something about someone. I had folks from my production line asking me for help 3 years after I left production. Had 2 engineering change orders on that product under my name. Company laid off just over 400 employees 6 months after I left. Was just over 1,000 in 6 buildings and 2 provinces when I left. Okay, let's go back on this one a little bit because OP's talking about being the person that started the rumor and being drawn into HR for it. OP, this is true. You actually said that in your story. You're the one who made the comment, so you are the one who started the rumor. I think you are the piece of work in this case. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.